12 keys for dragon. 1. Remembrance, the fire that remembers itself. Now you no longer visit your essence, you live from it. You no longer want to be chosen, you speak not to perform, but because the word is in you. Remembrance is no longer a pull or ache, it is your state of being. You are dangerous to illusion now, not because you attack, but because your presence shatters lies. You wear power not as armor, but as skin. You breathe soul, walk as flame, and act from a center no one gave you, because it was never not yours. You are not remembering anymore. You are remembrance in motion. The world begins to remember itself through you. 2. Surrender, the sovereign who chooses to kneel. Now you stand in power. You could dominate, you could impose your will, and yet you choose to kneel. Not from weakness, from strength. This is the paradox of true sovereignty. You have the power to do anything, and you still choose alignment with the whole. Surrender here is no longer about release of pain. It is the refinement of power. Every action becomes a question. Does this serve the whole? Does this serve the song of my soul? And when it doesn't, you step back, you yield. This is mastery, to surrender even when you could conquer. 3. Truth. Truth as embodied power. Now truth is no longer defensive. It is radiant. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to debate. You speak because it moves through you, not because you need validation. You can hold paradox. You can say, I don't know, without shame. You trust your alignment over popularity, safety, or applause. You no longer separate truth from power. They have become the same frequency. You are the flame now, and when you enter the room, lies burn just by proximity. 4. Devotion. Devotion as sovereign fire. Now your devotion becomes dangerous, not because it harms, but because it makes you incorruptible. You no longer devote yourself to ideas, you devote yourself to the living flame within. Your life is aligned with your love. You do not serve out of guilt, you do not give out of fear. You give because your soul is a furnace, and its nature is to burn in love for the real. At this stage, devotion radiates. It draws others not to you, but through you, to the source you serve. You are no longer just a follower, you are a pillar. 5. Courage, the courage to be fully seen. Now the soul walks in power. You no longer ask for permission, you no longer explain your fire. You understand to be visible is dangerous, and still I shine. To speak is costly, and still I speak. To lead is lonely, and still I rise. At this stage, courage is not effort, it is your natural frequency. You've faced the crucible, you've kept your vow, and now the world cannot move you from your post. Here, courage is felt by others as permission. You walk into the room, and others remember they too can stand. You are the flame, you are the clarity, you are the voice, and you fear no mirror. 6. Presence. Presence as power. Now your presence speaks before you do. You walk into the room and energy shifts. not because of ego, but because of alignment. Your presence becomes a commanding stillness, not in volume, but in truth. You are fully in your body. You are not leaking, not seeking, not hiding. You are here entirely. This is power, not over others, but within. Presence becomes your throne. You don't need to prove, push, or convince. You speak, and the frequency does the work. This is the dragon sitting still, not because it's tame, but because it knows itself. 7. Compassion. Compassion with boundaries of fire. Now your compassion becomes fierce. You no longer mistake tolerance for love. You know that real compassion sometimes says no. You protect the sacred in yourself and in others. You call out distortion not to shame, but to awaken. You no longer enable patterns of harm just to appear loving. This is compassion. This is the compassion of the sword, clear, sharp, and grounded in truth. You can see the wound behind the cruelty, but you also hold accountability without flinching. Your compassion is not weak, it is evolutionary. 8. Service. Service as embodied authority. Here, your service becomes radiant and powerful. You don't just offer help, you offer presence, vision, and command. You speak with clarity, you act with precision, you serve with fierce boundaries and deep integrity. You no longer seek roles, you create them. You know your value and you offer it boldly without shrinking or explaining. Here, service becomes a demonstration of what's possible. You're not just helping others survive, you're helping them awaken. You're not giving scraps, you're building worlds. 9. Radiance. Radiance as unapologetic power. Now your radiance is undeniable. You do not ask for permission to glow. You do not shrink in the face of discomfort. You do not dim when others feel small. This is not arrogance, it is spiritual confidence. You know what you carry. You know what you've walked through. You don't hide your fire, and so your radiance becomes transformative. It ignites others, it exposes truth, it shatters illusion. You don't need to demand respect, your presence commands it, because you are no longer afraid of your own light. 10. Integrity. Integrity as power without corruption. Now you wield power, but remain rooted in soul. This is rare. Many lose integrity when they rise, seduced by influence, distorted by applause, fearful of failing. But you, dragon, have walked the fire, and so your power remains clean. You speak boldly, but do not manipulate. You lead fiercely, but do not dominate. You hold the flame, but never forget that it is not yours alone. Integrity here becomes the guardian of radiance, the force that keeps your light from becoming shadow. 11. Humility. Humility and power. Now you carry fire and you carry it lightly. You can destroy with your words, command with your presence, but you choose gentleness unless the moment demands force. You know your impact, you wield your gifts, but you are not ruled by them. This is the stage of true leadership, when you hold greatness without arrogance and responsibility without superiority. You bow not because you must, but because you recognize the infinite in all. And so your power becomes a blessing, not a weapon. 12. Return. Returning as a living flame. You return with power, but not domination. You return to the world that once feared your voice and speak with clarity. You stand where you once collapsed and hold the line. You walk through places that once silenced you and ignite remembrance in others. You do not burn bridges, you build paths. You are no longer fighting to be free. You are free and fighting for others to become so. Your fire is no longer your fire no longer consumes, it illuminates, it transforms.